Hello, good morning, and welcome to this Dawn Busters Taste Challenge. Well, I see daylight coming along here. Probably be able to do this for another week, and then it'll just be too dark for to call it dawn because it'd be dark. I have two straight rye whiskeys. This is Creek Rye. Got two half-size bottles, two halves, and it costs me $13.98 for the full amount. Now that's a deal because normally this runs about $28.99. I found it this year. The store had it on closeout, and I didn't understand why they would have it so cheap. But then when I realized by doing research that it had been discontinued and replaced by some age-stated Knob Creek Ryes, they didn't really change it. They just started aging it to a certain number of years and putting it on the label, the 7-year and the 10-year. This is unaged, non-age stated, introduced in 2012 and then closed out in 2024 with the updates. Okay, so then I understood it. So let's pour it in. Yeah, you could still find it. Mathern's has this on the shelf, pretty full shelf of it, which is telling me it's not that popular. It might be, in New Orleans or somewhere, but around here, rye whiskey in general doesn't really do well in this town that I can tell. I never see anybody buying it. It took them forever to sell the Sazerac Barrel Select, the store pick rye. Now, into New Orleans, yeah, people buy it. But around here, like I said before, it's more like a Crown Royal. This is more of a blended whiskey town, Canadian blended whiskey town. And I remember Hennessy used to be really popular around here. That seems to have faded out. But boy, years ago, there's a twist cap. Now that cap on the Knob Creek is fancy with the crumbly black wax, but boy, is it a mess to open. Pain in the neck. Looks nice, but it's aggravating. Okay, Jack Daniel's Tennessee Rye. Introduced in 2017 and made a big splash in the news. Jack Daniel's has a rye whiskey, Tennessee Rye, 70% rye whiskey. The other 30%, obviously, corn whiskey and I guess malted barley. They don't say anything about wheat, but it could have it. It's also charcoal mellowed in that Jack Daniel's way. It takes a whole 24 hours for one drop to drip through the big column of charcoal. But I remember when it came out and they were talking about it and you saw ads for it, and then internet ads, I guess, but then it just, I don't know, I guess it didn't really pan out for them. It didn't turn out to be real popular. People thought rye was the thing of the future, I guess, like it's a big thing, and then that kind of went, it was like a thing and then it wasn't a thing. Okay, and I couldn't understand. Now I got this for $5.99, 2 bottles. So $11.98 for a full size amount, which I thought was a great deal, and it was, because the normal price usually was about 18, maybe at the worst case scenario $20.99. Wasn't an expensive product. Then about 2 years ago, yeah, maybe it was last year, but I'm thinking it was longer ago than that. My friend David was like, man, I found this at Walmart. It was $9. I said, well, they do kooky prices sometimes, but I said, $9, that seems, I said, well, I've got a lot, I don't need it. He was just, I'm just telling you, it's not going to last. Well, I knew that, not for $9. But I went to my local Walmart and I was looking for other stuff. And I said, well, let me go look at the liquor section. Can't hurt. And there it was, a bunch of it on the shelf for $9. I said, well, you know what, I'm going to buy it. But I found it strange, that it was that cheap. So I bought it, and then, the next couple of days later, I went back to Walmart. It was all gone, Once they put a closeout price like that, that stuff just, it doesn't last. I don't care what it is. So I just thought it was strange. The website was still showing it and everything, and I didn't hear any news about it being discontinued, but I just thought it was odd. Then, sometime last year, the website wouldn't show up. could look at their portfolio, wasn't showing it. Now, there was a backdoor to get to it. If you typed in on like Google or Bing, if you typed in Jack Daniel's Tennessee Rye, the page would come up. The website would come up, but only that way. If you went straight to the Jack Daniel's site, it would never show it. So I said, oh yeah. I say, watch. In a few weeks, it's not going to come up in any format. And that's it. It disappeared. Now they don't. I think they got it in their history section that they introduced it in 2017 and all, but it's just like dead. And they didn't replace it with any. Well, they have some Jack Daniel's fancier ryes, yeah, I think. But they're not $18, you know. So I haven't tried those. I think there is one that's like something, but I haven't looked, and I don't recall seeing that. Okay, so this is what I have: 2 discontinued ryes. So I can't show you a website. There's nothing to show. They don't exist anymore, except maybe, like I say, on the shelf. Do some stores still have the Jack Daniel's Tennessee Rye? Oh yeah. It'll probably be on shelves for years because I'm sure they had a whole warehouse full of it. And then when the word came down to kill it, Walmart probably said, you know, we don't deal with dead stuff, you know, so they're not going to keep something on the shelf like that. It just was gone from, like I said, $9. All right. They're both copper, so good thing I have a tag, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to tell them apart. Now, in my other rye taste challenges, the Knob Creek was so clearly darker, I didn't really need tags. If I just saved a little bit, I could tell which was which. I had to make sure I closed my eyes and didn't glance, because if I saw the darker color, I'd know. But man, look, it wasn't any kind of challenge. The only screw up I had was twice when I was, I don't know what, maybe sleepy or I wasn't paying attention, or just because I'm kind of absent-minded like that. I put the wrong thing in the wrong tag. And I was like, wait a minute, Old Overhaul is not the main product? Because I'm always thinking, well, it's the oldest, so it's it's the competitor. So, but that was so obviously not correct. I mean, I could tell Old Overhaul tastes nothing like the Knob Creek Rye, and it's not as good as it, and you'd never confuse it. Now, I don't know about that Overhaul, that expensive rye version. That's like 100 proof. So that, yeah, now that could be really something to taste. And they have the Old Overhaul 114 proof. Well, you're obviously not going to confuse any other ordinary rye with that thing. Just like Old Granddad 114, you're not going to confuse that. Okay. Wasn't there a rumor that there was like am I right? That there was an Old Crown that they were, but that I never seen, but I think I saw somebody showing that. But Jim Beam, they put a lot of stuff, and you can look on their website and you'd be busy for a while looking at all of it. But then they'll just throw something out there that they don't talk about on the website. They don't list it, but there it is. You know it's there because you're looking at it on the shelf. Okay. Like the lowly Beams 8-star, and that's at the low end. Yeah, they definitely don't talk about that product, but there it is on the shelf, all lonely. All right, well, back to these. Knob Creek was introduced in 1992 as a high-end bourbon from Beam, Jim Beam Company. They wanted to put out better stuff, you know, kind of up their reputation, not just as an ordinary drinking bourbon, mixing bourbon. And that's been a very popular item for 33 years. And they've expanded the lineup. Like I said, they added the rye in 2012 and everything. Jack Daniel's, though, of course, you know, they're bourbon people. Tennessee whiskey, but it is bourbon, no matter what some fanatics might tell you. But they dabbled in other things, like, for instance, this, which didn't succeed. It only lasted on the market for 7 years. Herbie in India says, hello. He's given a check mark for KC, whatever that is, and Jack Daniel's given an X. Well, you don't have to like it. I'm not in love with it, but it is the best-selling American whiskey on the market. I don't think people buy it because they hate it. Now people say it's all marketing, all marketing. Think about it. When's the last time you saw a Jack Daniel's commercial on TV? I haven't seen one of those for years. Just hadn't seen it. I watch a lot of sports, and usually that's where they show that. I hadn't seen it. Jim Beam, yeah, I still see their commercials like every time I watch a baseball game. People, young people having a good time. If you want to be good looking and have fun with friends, drink Jim Beam because it's just so important. Okay, so they do push their stuff heavy. I guess Jack Daniels doesn't have to. I don't know. They just choose not to. I don't know. Don't ask me. I'm not a marketing person. But I noticed old number 7 is good. Yeah, and then there's a very rare number 7. It's not called old number 7, it's just called number 7. And it's a green label. And you can only buy it in Texas and Tennessee, and I don't know what other states. Somebody said Pennsylvania. And I've never seen it in Louisiana. But of course, you go to Texas, every liquor store got the green label. And my friend Paul, who moved to Texas in 1998, he said, "Isn't that the regular?" He said, "I thought Jack Daniels was a green label with the gold." I said, "Well, yeah, for Texas, that might be the main one, but not for the rest of the world." Okay. Now we come to the part where I smell it and taste it. I don't think I'm going to confuse a 90 proof with a 100 proof. Because just the strength gives it away. Okay, the aroma, there's not a whole lot happening here. I've noticed that in this series that the aroma is not too present. It's just sort of neutral, but the flavor is where it hits, comes in. Hello, says Phil from Reunion Island again in the Indian Ocean, part of France. Always a pleasure to watch your video productions. Thank you, Phil. Reunion is not a French colony anymore. It's a part of France. It's an overseas department of France. Sort of like Hawaii, it used to be a U.S. territory, but now it's part of the United States. If you're in Hawaii, you're not in an island owned by the United States, or islands, sorry, plural, but you're in a state. You're in the United States just as much as you're in New Jersey in the U.S. Although I don't think people think of it that way, you see. When they go to Hawaii, it's kind of like they're going to a foreign country. It's just in their mindset, you see, because it doesn't look like any part of the United States. It's not in America. It's in the Polynesia, in the Pacific Ocean. They even have a different language at the airport. They have the announcements in Hawaiian and in English. The signs are like that too. So the information signs, a lot of that around the state. So different kind of experience. Now Reunion might be the same way. Now France doesn't have states because France is a state. It's a single state. It's not the United States. It's just one state called France, made up of it's a nation state. The French people. They had a nation, the Franks, a tribe, if you want to call it a tribe, an ethnic group. And they made a state called France. That's a nation state. Hawaii was a nation state. The Hawaiian people had their own state, but it got absorbed in the U.S. Germany is a nation state. The German people have their own state. They used to not. They used to have a nation, but no state. Different states who didn't like each other, like the Greeks. Now, the United States and Canada are not nation states. They're made up of different ethnic groups. They're just a state. They're not really a nation. Like when they say on television, you should support your nation. That's really incorrect. They really should say you should support your country. But people get confused. Like the Indians have their own nations. The Cherokee Nation, the Seminole Nation, but they don't have a state. They're a nation. They're recognized as a nation of people, but they don't have their own state. They're not an independent country. Do you have Maker's Mark? No, I don't, Herbie, but that's on the to buy list eventually. I don't know when I'll get to it. All right, so a little geography lesson there. So France has departments, which are, think of them, they're like counties. Louisiana is divided into parishes, just like Jamaica, parishes. But in all the other states, except for Alaska, they have boroughs. But all the other states have counties. England has counties, which is like a local government. Well, France, they call it departments, but it's about the same thing. So that's it. Now, taste. That's why that word count came about. It's like a little minor noble of the ruler of a county, a count. Like a quasi noble, not really a noble, but sort of like a noble, like an in between. A county has a count, like Count Dracula. Okay, today we'll call it a county president, or in Louisiana, a parish president. All right, tastes like rye, mild, kind of mild, not too much strong notes. India has states. Okay, they used to have Rajasthans. All right, that's another story. All right, anyway, this one is stronger. Simple answer. Strong, 90 proof is strong. If you don't think so, you find out if you drink too much. Stronger. Good and very good. Okay, so I think the Knob Creek's better. They're both A, really. They're both in an A level. Most excellent. Now, you can laugh that off and say, you're crazy. You don't know good liquor. These are not A products. 93, 94, 95. Well, I think they are. I did pay $242 after tax for, I think it was $242.44, if I'm right. But it was close to that. But I'm pretty sure it was. But for that Johnny Walker Blue Label. Yeah. It was an A, 95, 9.5 out of 10. But for that price, it should have been 100. See what I'm saying? Didn't live up to its billing. If I'm buying $25 bottles that are 94 every day of the week, and I'm buying a $226 plus tax bottle that's a 95, we got a problem. I think we have a problem. Do I run into this problem with beer? Yes, all the time. They come out with some new beer. It's like $15.99 for a 4-pack of pint cans, and they brag, oh, it's amazing, and then people on Facebook talking about, oh, I can't believe it, it's amazing. And then, I'm like, oh yeah, let me buy it. And the reason I have an attitude is because I've had the experience over the years. I buy it. Sometimes it's like, wow, it really is great. But then the other half the time, it's like 50-50. It's like, it's not really that great. You say it is. I'm not seeing anything special about it. Big deal. It's got a moth on the cover, on the label. I don't know. I just don't. And so after that happens multiple times, yeah, you're naturally going to have an attitude about it. Now, I bought the 2024 Four Roses / Black Ops, the Brooklyn Black Ops / Four Roses, which is from Brooklyn, New York, but most of it is produced at Utica, New York, under contract, because Brooklyn's brewery is so tiny they can't really produce. They produce enough for tourists to come drink it at the brew pub there, but not to sell outside of maybe in that borough, maybe Brooklyn. But they needed to get a contract with they couldn't afford to build a whole big brewery, so they just made a contract with Utica, the brewery there, Saranac Brewery, FX Mac Brewing Company, FX Mac. And they had a lot of excess capacity. In other words, they didn't really use their equipment all the time, but they could use some money. So they said, well, yeah, we're here in the same state, and so we can make it. And that's been their contract with them all along for years now. And over there in Europe, they'll get it too, but it'll be from some British company, an English brewery. And I don't guess it'd be too hard to bring bourbon barrels overseas to England and let them age in bourbon barrels. That's pretty common. So they probably got them on hand in England. So yeah. Now, but that one was great. I bought it. And I was like, man, I hope this stuff isn't a dog like the last few years. Because I mean, it was like kind of nasty, like a D. Like it was bad. You could drink it, but it just tasted bad. I mean, I can taste a beer if it's bad, and it tasted bad. My friend David thought it tasted bad, and other people on the internet were saying, yeah, this stuff's bad. That was 2022, 2023. And I was like, I'm not buying this trash anymore. But I saw some for 2024. I actually bought it this year, but it was left over from last year. I said, well, this one was 12.5%. It varies year to year. I said, let me try it. If I get burned, I get burned. But it was great. I was like, wow, now see, it was an A plus. It was outstanding. But maybe in 2025, this variant might be back to the dog water. Now, Jack Daniel's Tennessee Rye. It's smooth. It's enjoyable. Has that minty, peppery rye bread taste. But it's not really that different from other ryes that I have. And it's, 70% rye. It's mellowed through charcoal and all of that. Charcoal filtered. And it's nice. And like I said, I didn't pay a lot for it. This bottle, the other bottle, and the full-size bottle that I've got unopened. But it's not that amazing or anything. It's just that it's most excellent. But then that's the thing about it. There's a lot of most excellent rye whiskeys on the market. You know what I mean? So that's not really that's not remarkable. And I guess people just didn't buy it too much. So it's gone, gone, but not forgotten, at least by me. Knob Creek, introduced 2012, must be successful. They still make it, and they've expanded it to a 7-year age, a 10-year age. I think there's even more elaborate versions of it, if I'm not mistaken. I know there's a 7 and a 10, and it's expensive, and it sells, much more expensive than the Jack Daniels, which you could easily find for less than $20. You might be lucky if you find it for less than $30. So just goes to show you, you think these companies, you got to kind of admire them for putting out stuff, taking a risk, and it doesn't always pan out. They tried Budweiser Black Crown, bombed. They tried Miller Fortune, and when I made the original video, and it's still posted, I was wearing that crazy dinosaur sweater. I tasted it, and I started tasting like popcorn, microwave popcorn, and I said, I think this could wind up to be Miller's misfortune, and it was, because that stuff, they couldn't give that stuff away. They had television commercials of the guys drinking out of a whiskey glass, trying to make it look, like almost like a whiskey beer or something, which it wasn't. I don't care what they did. That actor promoting it, that thing bombed, and it did not last. What, maybe a year, 2 years at the most? Yeah, probably 2 years. Wasn't my problem. I didn't buy it. I didn't invest in pack, a few cans here and there, tall cans, but it just did not sell. That third shift from Coors, Amber Lager, that thing went nowhere. They tried to rebrand it, still did not sell. Had television commercials. I don't care what they did, nobody bought it except me. I was the only person in America who bought it. Now you'll notice they're less enthusiastic about trying new brands. They kind of moved away from all that. Budweiser just puts out Budweiser. Anheuser-Busch puts out Budweiser and Bud Light. Now they got this Busch Light Lime and the Busch Light Apple. But they're real careful about trying to put out something new all the time, because they probably lost money on all that stuff. And Corona, Grupo Modelo put out the Corona Sun Brew, because I guess they thought some people wanted to drink Corona with orange juice in it. I wouldn't be one of those people. I tried it. I didn't really like it, because I don't really want to drink orange juice with or without beer. But that's me, But as I sipped on it, I did have to admit, it was well done. And if you like that concept, beer with orange juice, you're probably going to love it. One of my local stores here don't even sell it. I guess their manager looked at that and was like, I don't want to take the risk. I think it's going to bomb. I guess the sales are okay, but it might disappear. You see, they tried that with Yingling, that mango beer. Same thing. Made a big push for it. Mango beer, Screaming Eagle. Yeah, I thought it was all right. That was gone so fast. Supposedly they brought it back in a different format, lower alcohol, not a malt liquor version, but more like a mild beer version. And but I hadn't seen it. I don't think it's sold in Louisiana. It might just be around Pennsylvania. But then, Coors did the Blue Moon Mango Wheat. That thing is hot. I see people buying that all the time, and they don't promote it, but there it is. I mean, even if you look at the Yankees game, I'm wearing a Yankee shirt, but like literally, if you look if I'm watching the game highlights, they'll show a banner in the background behind the batter. It'll say Blue Moon, like a big promotion, Blue Moon, and they'll show the lineup, the extra, which is the malt liquor version, the strong one. Then they show the high gravity malt liquor. Then they show the regular Blue Moon, which is sort of like a malt liquor on its own. It's 5.4. Drink a bunch of those, you're gonna know it. And then the Blue Moon Light, formerly known as what they call that, Skylight or something. But they don't show the mango. Don't show it. But there it is in the store. Walmart got 12 packs and 6 packs, and that stuff comes off the shelf. Liquor enthusiast says, hey, hello to you. So, all right, back to this. It's just interesting that you've seen those brands over the years, how they sometimes make it, sometimes fake it, sometimes don't last. Looking at a can of Schlitz Ice right there, Schlitz Ice beer. That lasted about a week. I bought 1 6-pack. I found it in Mobile, Alabama. It was only like $2.99. What the heck? That was in '96. That's back when beer was inexpensive. And but it didn't go anywhere except into discontinuation. There was a little ice beer craze in the mid '90s where everybody thought ice beer was the wave of the future, but that wave didn't last too long, and it crested, and everybody moved on. So there's only a few ice beers left, and they're good sellers. You remember the ice craze for a minute? Yep. There are still ice beers around. Natural Ice is a strong seller. Walmart got it stocked to the hilt. I mean, they sell so many 30 packs of that stuff, and the 6 packs of pint cans. But they got rid of the bottles. I asked the distributor, I said, why y'all get rid of the bottles? He said nobody bought them. They were always going out of date. I said, that's a good reason to get rid of them. Now, Baton Rouge, I can still find quart bottles of Natural Ice. Last time I checked in Baton Rouge, they had it at stores. Quart bottles. Brown glass. Not common, but they're around. If you know a person that likes the bottle beer, which I do. But like I'm looking, Schaefer Ice gone. Old Milwaukee Ice gone. Pabst Ice. Yeah, there was a Pabst Ice. I can prove it. I got a can. I bought a 6-pack in Grand Isle, Louisiana in 1997. Natural Bohemian Ice. They called it Bo Ice. I bought that in Baltimore, Maryland. Yeah, in the hood. I was kind of scared going in that store. But I did it anyway. Stag Ice. There was Stag Ice, which is not even a common beer. There was even Mickey's Ice Brewed Ale. You're right. Mickey's Ice Brewed Ale. And I have some bottles and cans of that. That's gone. So the point there is that craze was a thing, and then it was not a thing. Like dry beer, that was a thing. Dry. I got Olympia Dry. Can you believe that? They don't even make Olympia beer anymore. There was Bud Dry. I used to buy Bud Dry. That was my standby beer. I would buy that all the time. Why wouldn't I buy it? I could get a whole 12-pack for $5.98 for years. $5.98. Why ask why? Just say Bud Dry. Bud Dry was like aloof to the consumers. They're like, what does that mean, a dry beer? It just meant not very sweet. but they couldn't conceive of what that meant. They even tried dry IPAs, brute IPAs, but they still make bush ice, but you can't find it in Louisiana. Never seen in Louisiana. They do make bush ice. They make Genesee ice, which we don't get Genesee beer of any form that in Louisiana. They make let's see, bush ice, Genesee ice, Molson. No, never mind that. Maybe in Canada there's a Molson ice and Labatt ice. Blah, 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 Bud ice, Ice House, which is getting harder to find, but I still see it, usually in 12 packs of bottles. Natural ice. Yeah, that's pretty much it. All they do is they take the beer and they freeze it. It's sort of like a freeze dried beer. They take the beer and they just crash. I was reading about this. It's called crash freezing. They just drop the temperature to below zero or to 0 degrees in like seconds. I don't know. They got this equipment that does it. So ice crystals start forming in the beer. So they strain the beer and leave the ice behind. They put it through a strainer, and ice is water, right? And then that makes the beer more concentrated, meaning higher alcohol. It was like a shortcut to get a higher alcohol beer without adding any extra ingredients. So some of the companies still have that equipment on hand where they do that. Other companies just said, we ain't paying for that stuff. It doesn't even sell. But there is a niche market for it today. A niche market. Believe me, niche. They even had a genuine draft craze back then in the earlier 90s. That's right. Definitely. Where it meant so much to have a draft beer, non-pasteurized, cold filtered. As we know, Miller pioneered that with Miller High Life Genuine Draft, later known as just Miller Genuine Draft. Still made. Few people buy it. And I've got bottles. I've got cans of this stuff. I've got Pabst Genuine Draft. Can you believe that? What's the name of that beer? Ham's Genuine Draft. Ham's Genuine Draft. Miller gave them a cease and desist order. The lawyer sent them a letter saying, you want to go to court? They said, oh, no. So all of a sudden, it was Ham's Golden Draft. You're right. Schaefer Genuine Draft, which we never saw in Louisiana. Oh, we used to get Schaefer by the gallons. So that was the thing. And all of them had the same color scheme. Red, gold, and black. I even got Heileman's Old Style Classic Draft. Heileman's Old Style Classic Draft. And even a Colt 45 cold filtered beer. Non-pasteurized, cold filtered. They even had a Coors version, but that didn't go anywhere. No one cared. No one cared if their beer was pasteurized or not. They could not detect the flavor difference. Is there a difference? Yeah, there's a subtle difference, but not enough people cared about that. If you want to see the can of the Heileman's Old Style Genuine Draft, I'll show it to you. But otherwise, you get the picture. I'll show it, but you get the picture. Okay. So really, malt liquors are the only fad, so to speak, that's still around. But that's because, or around in a significant way. That's because some people like strong beer. Yeah, they want high alcohol beer, so there you go. All right, this is the Knob Creek. It's clearly stronger. Some people like strong whiskey, right? That's why the barrel proof is the thing. Not with too many people, but with some. Of course, I got it right. I mean, this video could have been 5 minutes, honestly, because it's no kind of challenge. Now, do I have any rye whiskeys left? Yes, I do. But we're leaving the United States. I'm leaving the United States. I'm going north to Canada. I'm going to be a draft dodger. I'm going to Canada, and I'm going to try something called Alberta Premium, introduced in 1960. It's a 100% rye whiskey, 80 proof. Alberta Premium. Now the company has been around since like Alberta Distillers, I think 1947 when they got started. They make products. They got old whiskeys they've been making. They use Alberta grain, makes sense. It's in the Great Plains in Canada. They call it Interior Plains there. So it's just the same as Kansas. Grassland goes from Oklahoma all the way up to the Arctic. But Mathern's had this. They brought in one bottle. I guess the manager told the distributor, look, we'll try to sell one bottle. And it was like $30-something. Nah, take that back. It was $24.99. I remember now. No one bought it, including me. So then they put it on the counter and had it for $14.99. I bought it. The one bottle, I bought it. I said, $14.99, I'm game. It's not that good. It's good. It's just bland. Doesn't stand a chance against Knob Creek. It's going to get beat so bad. Then I've got Hunter Rye. Now, you've heard of Canadian Hunter. That's a very low bottom shelf Canadian whiskey introduced by Seagram's in 1984, which was the Canadian whiskey for the 80s, which made no sense because they already made Canadian whiskey like Crown Royal, for instance. And I don't know what this was supposed to. They probably didn't even know why they made it. They were just like, well, so after 5 short years, they sold it to Sazerac. That's all they did. They just gave it to sold it to the Sazerac company. So then they dropped the Seagram's name off of it. Makes sense. And they sell it now as Hunter Rye, Canadian Hunter. Never changed the label, except to drop the Seagram's name off of it. I know I found a bottle of Seagram's Canadian Hunter, though. My friend David has one. He never even opened it yet. I don't know why he's waiting. Old bottle, like over 30 years old, going on 40 years old. He never opened it. I don't get it. But man, it's going to get murdered by Knob Creek. Do I like Hunter Rye? Oh, I like it. Tastes good. It's going to get killed. I found a bottle of that for $11.99 in at the liquor warehouse in Arlington, Texas, on the old United States Highway 80, which is now Texas Highway 180 because they got rid of United States Highway 80 because the interstate was built. Once you get to Dallas, there is no more 80. There is U.S. Highway 80 still around from the Atlantic Ocean to Dallas. But something happened in 1991. They decided to drop the number, and you could still drive on it. Like I say, it's Texas 180, and then when you go to Arizona, it's New Mexico Highway 80, New Mexico Highway, same road, and then it's even around in California. I think they have signs up says historic U.S. Highway 80. Yeah, that's what they call it, historic Highway U.S. 80. But boy, that thing, you can see why they replaced it. You go through the mountains and it's like, you feel like you're going to go off a cliff. It's like, no wonder they built the interstate to get around this wiggle waggle. Scary road. Okay, and that, can you imagine that was the main highway to San Diego until the 1990s? It's like, ain't getting on this thing. All right. So that's it. Yeah. The whole point of it, nobody's going to challenge Knob Creek. Not in my collection. I've got a Scotch Rye. You say, nah, you're crazy. Nah, I'm not crazy. The product's crazy. It's called Johnny Walker High Rye. 60% rye. But it's not going to, it's going to get It's going to get waxed. It's going to get murdered. It's only 80 proof anyway. Got no chance. I like it. I like that product. Yeah, I'm glad. And Walmart got it don't ask me why. You go to any liquor store, it's $35. Normal price for Johnny Walker. A Johnny Walker specialty. Here at Walmart, they got it for $20.27. Now, figure that out. Okay, so yeah, if you say, well, I'm not watching all these video challenges because it's not going to win. You already said it's not going to win. It's not going to be a challenge. It is not going to win. It's not going to be a challenge. And if you don't watch, I won't take offense because I'm telling you the outcome. I'm telling you the outcome before it happens. Okay. I'm telling you from experience with this Knob Creek. There's no hope. Maybe but it's unlikely. Maybe the Crown Royal Northern Harvest Rye, maybe Crown Royal Northern Harvest Rye stands a chance, but I wouldn't put my money on that. I would say, yeah, it's going to compete, but it's going to lose. It'll score a few touchdowns, but it's still going to get blown out in the fourth quarter. When they start having to put the second string in, it's going to get killed. You see that in college football all the time. Like, oh, I cannot believe that Coastal Carolina is tied with Florida State in the third quarter. It's 21-21. I can't believe it. Then you say, yeah, but it's not going to stay that way. And then with 4 minutes left in the game, it's like 38-21. And then they're just throwing, they're wide open, throwing touchdown passes because they're worn out. Coastal Carolina's first string can go toe to toe with anybody, but when they got to put in when they get tired and they got to put in the second string, that's when Florida State's gonna. I'm just giving that as an example because their second string is gonna be on most smaller schools' first string. You understand that? The second string of Florida State, Louisiana State, Texas, Southern California, Washington. Their second string would be the starting lineup, the starting 11 defense and offense for most smaller schools. That's just the reality. All right, we all take care. Bye-bye.